Unlike most of its contemporaries, Overland is a survival horror, strategy, meets indie film meets high concept art project. The game is scary, the game is difficult, and quite frankly, the game's pretty fun. The narrative in Overland is definitely its strongest point. You won't be treated to any long cinematics or exposition dumps or characters or narrating, nothing. And it's going to take dying quite a few times to fully realize how depressing and bleak this game really is. You're treated to small 1 to 2 sentence conversations between each survivor after finishing a level. These conversations can be nothing, where they just talk about eating and driving at night, to deeper interactions about why you killed someone. I noticed that after killing someone who needed help, my partner didn't berate me like I expected, but instead asked, "Is this what we're doing now?" And well, that kind of painted the picture that the developer Finji really wanted to build with this world. It's bleak, it's depressing, and quite frankly, you're not really the good guy here. So as I stated earlier, this game kind of has an indie filmmaking vibe to it, and I mean that in the best way possible. The use of music and color here is unlike anything you find in most AAA horror games, and that's awesome. Before we get into color, why does it matter? In film and TV, color can change the way the viewer reacts to a scene without them even noticing. Soft, bright colors and kind of poppier tones can give a warm, welcoming, and happy vibe. When on the other hand, the use of darker, desaturated tones tends to give your viewer a more stressful and urgent feeling. So think about the last horror movie that you watched. It was most likely desaturated, it was very dark, it was hard to really focus on all the details, and it kind of stressed you out and you didn't even realize it. Overland uses a bleaker color palette to give every level a menacing and unwelcome feeling. The use of browns and earthy tones give off kind of an indie film vibe while still making every environment feel like it's been long abandoned and does not want you there. Not to be outdone by visuals and writing, but the score in Overland is a step above most horror titles, even in the AAA space. Instead of using your standard pianos, keys, and kind of like pizzicato strings, Overland goes with a more experimental wall of sound approach. This chaotic blend of looming strings, sound effects, and synths help create a really distorted backdrop that feels like something pulled out of a night terror instead of a video game. There is an acoustic song that plays every so often between levels, but it's pretty spooky, so I'll let it pass. It's very clear that developer Finji intended for you to put the narrative pieces together and imagine what happened in the world around you without them hand-feeding you all the details. While this wouldn't work as effectively in a AAA title like The Last of Us, Overland's creative use of player-driven storytelling really makes this one of the best horror games I've played since PT. You've just gotta let yourself get lost in it first. So, how's it play? Like I stated earlier, Overland is a survival horror strategy game where the odds are stacked against you in every way possible. The overworld is a map, and depending on how much gas you have, you need to make some tough choices. Overland is also a stealth game, but not a stealth game like you think. It's more of like a smash and grab, get back to the car, and get out as quick as possible stealth game. Its gameplay is more about efficiency and pacifism. Killing enemies might fix the problem in the short term, but it will most likely lead to an overwhelming death once the horde is awakened. If you kill one enemy, they'll do a death scream, will alert more aliens, and they'll spawn right under your car sometimes, which really sucks. Everything in this game that you need to do makes noise. Break into a car, everyone's alerted. Alien blows up a generator on turn 1, everyone's blaming you. Turn on a car, everyone's gonna call shotgun. It's just one of those games where every single move has to make sense and has to be efficient. Thankfully, there's an undo button. While this may seem off-putting at first, it's incredibly rewarding once you figure out how to quickly and efficiently clear a level and drive off before any aliens realize they're even there. I just wish I didn't have to sacrifice so many dogs to get gas. Sorry guys. The biggest gripe with the game is the procedurally generated maps. While this is a cool idea in theory, it was more unforgiving and totally broken at times than I wanted it to be. I can't explain how extremely frustrating it was to be on a decent run, only to end up on a map that's basically impossible to finish early on in the game. While I get that this totally might be by design, come on. It just becomes incredibly unfun when the game decides that it needs to spawn 10 enemies on one map at night when you have no gas. Other than that though, Overland plays like a dream. Most of the time I played it on an iPad Pro with a pencil, and I have to say, that is the best way to play the game. While I know the game's been available on itch.io, and it's pretty good with a mouse and keyboard, with a game this difficult and immersive, I found it a way more pleasurable experience just looking down on a flat surface. It has an almost tabletop RPG-like experience that you just don't get from playing with a mouse and keyboard or on a Switch. So if you have the means for it, seriously, try it on an iPad. You'll like it, unless you're playing on a phone. While Overland looks stunning on my iPhone 11 Pro, the small screen size made it impossibly difficult to select smaller items on the map and just get around without having to hit that undo button a million times. With that in mind, I really can't see this game being enjoyable on an older iPhone that doesn't have the full screen at its disposal. Sorry iPhone 7. It's a shame though, because Apple Arcade's built-in cloud saves made playing the game at home and then on the go really seamless. It's not often a horror game like this comes around. Well, that sort of statement is pretty common. Overland has so much creativity and intrigue in one package. From the haunting soundtrack and bleak character interactions to lightning fast gameplay, Overland is by far one of the best games available on Apple Arcade at the moment, and if you don't have an Apple device, you can play it on literally anything else. It's a miserable yet intriguing experience that should be played by any fans of strategy, horror, or roguelike games. Just try to avoid crashing your car. You might have dogs in there.